Right, we're going to continue with our third pass now. And we're just going to go finish this off. We've got a few yellow flags to deal with, and we've got our masking on our blonde guy's eyes. And then we're just going to watch the whole thing through, make a few little tweaks, watch it all through, and then sign off on it. So we're going to start off with our masking here, because we are losing a lot of detail in this guy's eyes. Now, because we're tracking, we can only track in the clip panel. We cannot track in either group, in either pre-clip, post-clip, or timeline. We can only track with clip. So we're going to get our power window out, and we're going to draw around his eyes. Let's just see how he moves. Okay. We're going to give him goggles. Then we're going to soften these out a fair amount because we want to be able to hide the effect. Let's bring it in a little bit on this side. There we go. So now in here, we're just going to pull our corrections. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring this up until we get some eye detail back, and then we're going to bring our mids and our highlights down. And we're just going to try and hide it. As we make it brighter, we need to jack up the saturation, and we just need to keep going until we start getting some iris detail back in his eyes, and so, you know, his eyes stop being kind of big black dots. That's primarily what we're going for here. And we'll just bring down those mids, and we just want to try and hide this as best we can. There we go. Now we can see the difference that's made. Is that it's made his eyes much more visible, and then we'll go ahead and we'll track. And let's just watch this through. It might be that's not too bad. No, that's fine. Now we've got our eyes back. And we're going to go through all of his angles, and we're going to do that and sort out his eyes because they're just a little bit overshadowed and we just lose a bit too much detail in the eyes. So what we can do, we can just middle click, and that's going to copy over the shape and the correction. And then we can just drag it along and we adjust it. I might just soften the bottom parts out a little bit more. Okay. And that just again gives us back a little bit more detail in the eyes, and we'll track that forwards. It should be fairly simple. And every time we do this, we want to watch it through and make sure we don't spot a halo outside or anything, and that it still looks quite convincing. It looks natural, it doesn't look artificial. And it's much more effective now to see his eyes more clearly, whereas before we kind of lose the expression a little bit. And now we can actually see what's going on. So we'll go through, and like we're keeping super detailed work like this to a minimum because we've got quite a tight deadline, but in this case it's just something we have to do. We just have to make sure that we don't lose the eyes in our grade, because the eyes are super important, as any actor will tell you. Key part of expression is in the eyes and the eyebrows, and if they become obscured, it becomes that much harder to read an expression and therefore empathise with the performance an actor is currently giving. Cool. And another one. Oop. Put that back in its right place. There we go. Okay, this one's a little bit off. We just need to expand it out there. Then let's just watch this. In the other angles, these eyes are fine, they look great, we can see everything. We just need to make sure that we don't lose any of the eyes in our blonde actor here. Now let's just check this. Okay, that's fairly simple. We'll just... Oh, we've missed one, fair enough. Okay, that one we might have a slight halo problem. Nope, that's fine, it's not visible. And then here, We'll delete a few points here because we don't need them all. We'll just, actually we don't want to add a new point there, we'll just make sure we don't have a visible halo. What was that? Oh right, I think, let's just see. Aha, now we have a scan line here. And that's the result of our mask going a bit weird, that's fine. Every now and again this kind of error, like it's a thin line across the screen, this happens very occasionally. It's down to our mask being a little bit odd, and we just need to change the shape of our mask until we get rid of it. The first time that happened, I had no idea what was going on. I sent a message back to the client saying, your footage is corrupt, but actually no, it's just that every now and again the masks in Resolve just behave a little bit strangely. It's not very common. I've seen that about 3 times, including that time just now, but I know what it is now. Okay, great. Okay, there's quite a lot of movement in there. We might have to get in there and compensate for that movement manually. The track might not be enough by itself, but we'll see. Okay, fine, we need to fix that with a bit of keyframing. So we'll just turn the keyframing on. That's fine. Okay, so it's here that it goes wrong. We'll add a dynamic keyframe and then it goes a bit wrong there, and we'll just fix that. Making sure to keep a fairly nice feathered shape. Then we need to go right to the end and correct it again, because it always goes back to the way it was at the end if we've tracked. Cool, so let's go through and watch that. Perfect. Let's watch this through and see if there's any halo issues. Perfect. Okay, that one's going to be very easy to track. Barely even moves. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go back to an earlier one. Perfect. And that's it, that's all of those. Now the next yellow flag we have is this shot. We just need to see how well we think everything carries through. Take it off repeat, of course. Oh yeah, we had bits of yellow spill here, didn't we? So we need to take a look at this and see what else we can do here. And there, that's okay because the skin is showing through, but we need to do a bit more work here. So let's... In later shots, let's see what colour her shirt turns out. Okay, there's a bit of spill on later shots, isn't there? No, okay, fine. In that case, we're going to take the opposite approach. We're going to try and include as much of the shirt as we can. There we go. That does include some of the more bluey-green stuff. There we go. Let's just see. Okay. In that case, here is what we're going to do. We're going to keyframe this secondary. Now that's going to work. It's going to be absolutely fine. We just need to keyframe the fifth node. We're going to squeeze down the selection as we go up here, and that way we'll keep this blue background. That's fine. Yeah, okay, what we'll do is we'll do that, so we'll go into our log corrections, we'll just put a little bit of magenta in the shadows there to clean them out. Cool, and we just need to take care of some of the green. So we'll get the green. I think I tried this before, but we'll just... Yeah. Okay. Alright, that does pose a challenge, so let's just think about how we can approach this. It's important that we keep that consistent between the two. I'm going to sort out this shot first. I'm going to keyframe layer 5, or node 5 I should say. And so it's there, up to this point where we see the green back there. I'm going to put another static down, and then all we're going to do, we're going to shift that secondary down, and now lo and behold we've got our blue background back. We might just want to shift it across just a little bit more. There we go. And now we don't see that happening, but we preserve, we preserve our blue background. So now we just need to sort out our greeny yellow background there. Now that could well be that a key sorts that out. Let's see if that works. I don't already know the solution to every single problem I face immediately. There's a lot of this is kind of thinking on the fly and just trying things out. But I can probably key this out fairly successfully. And because it's only ever going to be at the top, what I can do is I can just put it up there. You can see just how many different options are available to you now when you're performing secondary grading. And then I just need to pump some blue into it. And then I've got the same blue background that I've got in the next shot as well. Let's just see how that works. Okay, that isn't ideal. Because we have a kind of blurry, thing. Let me speak directly into the mic this time. We have that kind of blurry thing on the left-hand side, which is changing the colours. Let's just watch this in full and see what we think. Okay, we definitely have our blue background, then him, then we have our blue background again. The only thing that bugs me slightly is how green those shadows are. Let's take a look at what we can do about that. Maybe I might just pull some colour out of the shadows here. That's much better, much cleaner. I need to do the same here as well. But not as much. Now let's watch this sequence through. Cool, that's good. A little bit of repeated action there, but never mind. Okay. This shot doesn't feel like quite a good match. It's not as dark, so what we're going to do, we're going to go into group post clip and we're just going to kind of finesse it until we're a bit happier. I might just bring up the saturation a little bit and bring those mids down, then we'll see how well that goes. That's more like it. So let's go back and watch this sequence again. We'll watch it in full screen mode. We do have that issue with this bit of kind of crating here going yellow. That does bug me, but it's probably not a deal breaker. Let's just see what happens then. Okay. That seems pretty stable. Let's just watch this through. There is a kind of a haze on the side of the camera, and that's because of some kind of lens attachment that was used during the shoot. During the online edit, we might zoom in on this. It was shot in 3K, so we can do that, and we might just pan in or crop in. Sorry, as we crop in, we don't pan in. So we can avoid that kind of haze on the left-hand side. Okay, if I go back a little bit. Okay, I don't quite have that key. Why has that changed? Ah, fair enough, because it's bluer now. Cool. We might just bring the saturation of it down a little bit. And now let's give that a good look. Excellent. That's a good match. That's also a good match. I'm happy with that. That's a much better match now. It's a shame the clients lost the audio to this film. They've got all the video rushes, but they've lost all their recorded audio. Okay, I'm pretty happy with most of this. Just going back. There we go. There's some pinkness in here I'm not happy with, so let's just go back and get that sorted. We'll just rotate the magenta down here so that it looks more like a flesh color, and now that's handled everything. Let's go back a few shots and start again. Okay, a bit of stabilizing there, that's fine. Okay, a little bit of pink in here, let's just take care of that. Okay, so of course we've got this bit, which was a bit of a problem. Now, this is the value of coming back to something about 15 minutes later. I think I've got an idea of what to do here. Looking at this now, these shadows are too blue, the hair is too blue, this is too blue. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go into log, and I'm going to put some warmth into those shadows. And then I just need to bring the shadow saturation down a smidge. And now it should be a closer match. Let's just take a look. That's an almost perfect match. I really can't see the difference there. Excellent. We'll get rid of that yellow flag. And actually, whilst we're at it, we're going to go back to our last yellow flag and say we're happy. Flags undo. Flags green. Cool. And now we've got to take care of the pink in here. We're just going to go magenta, red. And just make sure that our magenta actually looks quite skin coloured. And this looks good. There's a little bit of a red smear on there, but that's not too, it's such a fast action shot, you just don't really notice it that much. This is much better now. This looks good, you don't notice that, okay. There's a lot of out of focus action here, but you know, indie film. Okay, this is getting a little bit pink, so we're going to take care of the pink in here. We're going to have to apply some noise reduction as well. Again, don't forget about the render cache when working on this project. Applying noise reduction to red is extremely demanding. And you know, this is a practice project primarily. It's okay if you don't want to go through and do the noise reduction this time, especially if you're working on a laptop that's got a limited GPU capacity. Don't worry about that part too much. Red can be a bit noisy, especially in low light. It's still a fantastic format to work with. Okay, and now we've got this last bit here. I'm actually going to remove this from its group, and then we can do a better job of matching it up there. So I'm pretty happy with most of this. Once we've done this, we'll watch it through another time before we, you know, sign off on the grade. But we're pretty close to it being done now. We're approaching 2 hours 30, 2 hours 45 in total. I work at a fair pace on things like this. I've been doing it for ages. Don't worry if it's taking you longer. Do try and, you know, for this one, do try and stick to the 4-hour limit because it's going to be good practice for when a real contract comes in and then suddenly you've got like one afternoon to do 2 days work. That does happen, believe me. So let's just see how we're going here. Okay, so there is okay. Okay, that's a little bit less. Although what we can do is we can just bring those shadows down a smidge again. And here we go. Okay, that's a nice start. We can just look through what we already have. If something works, it works. That's actually quite a nice one. Let's see how well that edits together. Okay, that's better. That's good. We can just clean up the key a little bit, I think. We might just tone down the blue, just bring it down to about, there we go. Then let's just see what this looks like. Might just bring the saturation up a smidge there. Okay, that's still looking a little bit on the green side. Let's bring it closer back to the blue that we've established. What we'll do there, because it's all so going a little bit green, we'll just bring it back to blue. There we go. And that is more like it. Now maybe just a little bit of mids down. Cool, now we've just got a bit of pink skin, so what we'll do is we'll just make sure we don't have any magenta left. Get rid of the pink. There we go. Okay, I am pretty happy with that. Third pass was never going to take hours and hours, And again, we've got quite a tight deadline, so what we need to do is just make sure it's good, and then we can move on. Okay, I'm now happy to check this through. So now let's take it from the top and see what we think. Definitely have some noise, but then again I can apply noise reduction to that. We know how NR works now, and it's just there's nothing special about the noise reduction in this project. You just apply it as you always would, as we have done in the last two projects. If you want to go ahead with that, I won't bother going through the whole thing and applying NR shot by shot, because you know what that is. If you want to, go ahead. If not, then fine. Again, if it's really going to tax your machine, a laptop or whatever, then that's fine. Right, this is looking good. We're fairly confident in this dialogue sequence anyway. I'm happy with how those eyes have come out. If I had more time, if I could give this a full 8 hours as opposed to 4, then I'd go through, I'd, do face vignettes, I'd rotoscope eyes, make, do all that kind of thing, iron out the last few little blemishes. 1 or 2 rough edges here or there. That's fine, it's an indie flick, we've got limited time, limited budget within which to work, so we can't treat it like a giant corporate shoot. We just, we don't have the time or the resources to do that. And again, it's important to realise, depending on the project you have, you're not going to be able to go through and do all of that stuff. You're not going to be able to go through and spend hours and hours masking out individual things. So what we need to do, if there are rough edges, we need to make sure that they're difficult to spot. It's okay if there's a little bit of a blemish on a very fast shot. And we just have to make judicious use of our time. We just have to make sure that we're spending our time on the things which matter, not on little minute details that aren't really essential. And it can be heartbreaking. There can be things that you really want to get right, things that you really want to deep dive into and get absolutely just so, but there's not always the opportunity to do so. I'm pretty happy with this for a quick turnaround. I think it's looking good. There are some focus issues, but that's in the footage. There's not a whole lot I can do. And these are decoding at half resolution. They'll look better in full res when we render it out. I'm pretty happy with all of this. Again, there are little details that, given the time, I'd rotoscope out. So there's the little region in the top right of the roof here, of the wall, and that alternates between blue and skin coloured. But if I had the time, I'd go through and I'd mask that out and I'd fix it. But again, tight turnaround. We're working within our means here. And believe me, it's the offline editor. It's the editor who gets all the extensions. It's not the colorist who gets deadline extensions. So we have to treat, it's good to treat all of our deadlines as though they are final, because in our case they mostly are. It's the editors who get all the luck in that regard. And this is all looking pretty good to me. Again, if I had time for another pass, I'd probably even out these shots. There's a little bit, these close-ups are a lot darker. And that's just the natural lighting. We could probably even this out a little bit more, but within the time frame we have, this is a reasonable output and it's acceptable. It's not jarring. It's not, really bad. Everything comes together and it looks good, in my opinion. And there we go. Right, I would be happy to sign that off, I would be happy to then send that along to a client and say, you know, third pass aiming for sign off. This is what we've got. If there are any big issues, let me know. I might just tweak a few tiny little details whilst they're looking at it, but other than that, it'd be pretty much done. So we're now at the end of this real world project. This has been a kind of a different one. There's one thing to show you before we finish though, and that's in the delivery panel. There's a setting under advanced settings. And here we have disable edit and input sizing, force sizing to highest quality, and here we have force debayer to highest quality. When we export a project from RED footage, we make sure that we have this checked. This means even if we are working at 1/4 res good with the bayer on, without it being debayered, what happens is this forces the export to be full resolution and debayered. It forces it to be final delivery quality, no matter what you have set otherwise. We need to make sure we have this set, otherwise you might accidentally render the bayer pattern into the footage, which is never good. In fact, it's never even acceptable. I once had a grade job where that happened. Some VFX artists had delivered plates with Bayer filter rendered into them, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. Like, it just was so difficult to get rid of that noise. I think in the end the edit had to be changed a little bit because there was just no salvaging the shots. Right, and that's it. So, hopefully we've learned a lot in this one. We've learned a lot about working to pace and how we might use layer nodes to set up a color contrast look, and how we might approach, dialogue sequences, how we approach grading drama, how we obviously take account into the of all of these things, and how we take account of how to work within a limited time frame. So, I hope you've learned a lot from that, and click on through to the next lecture when I manage to publish it, and also when you're ready. Goodbye.